Welcome to our deep dive today. We've got this really interesting collection of short stories, and they all seem to be about tranquil places, peaceful places. And the characters in the stories, well, they seem to live really peaceful lives too.
Yeah, definitely. There's like a real sense of calm in all of them. And one thing that really strikes me is all the sensory details. Like you can almost smell the salt air in that one story, the one with the lighthouse, and the sounds
The
too.
lighthouse keeper.
Right.
Right. It's like you're right there on the coast with him,
Yeah.
feeling that ocean breeze.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting how those details, the sounds and the smells, they all connect back to the character's inner life, like their surroundings are like almost like an extension of their own peacefulness.
That's a really good point. So let's talk about this lighthouse keeper then. What's his name again?
Elias.
Elias.
Right.
So he lives in this solitary lighthouse, right? Perched on the edge of this quiet little coastal village. And his life is all about routine.
Totally. It's like tending to the light, brewing chamomile tea as the sun sets.
Oh, and wrapping himself in a warm blanket while listening to the waves crash against the shore.
Yes. That routine is so important, I think. It's like it creates a sense of predictability, in a world that can feel so chaotic sometimes. The repetition, the familiar sounds and smells, they all kind of ground him in the present moment.
It's like a meditation almost, right? Just being present with those simple actions and sensations.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one other detail I love about that story.
What's that?
Nimbus,
Oh, right. Elias's cat. Always curled up on his lap.
purring away. Even in solitude, there's that sense of companionship, of warmth, It's like peace isn't always about being completely alone. Sometimes it's about those simple connections, even with a pet. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, so from the coast, let's move on to our next story. The Forest of Echoes, right? This one takes us deep into the heart of this ancient forest. And there's this clearing where the air, get this, it's like the air itself holds on to these remnants of positive emotions, almost like echoes of past joy and kindness.
Whoa! That's such a wild concept. It's like the forest is like a living memory of all those good vibes. It's like peace, can be found not just in quiet places, but by connecting to something bigger than yourself.
It's like tapping into a collective energy, right?
Yeah.
Collective memory of all the good stuff that's happened there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are real places that hold that kind of energy,
Yeah.
Even if we can't literally hear the echoes.
It makes you think, right? Like, are there places that just feel good to be in because of what's happened there before?
Right. Or maybe it's a combination of things. Maybe the place itself is naturally peaceful, but then all those positive experiences, they add another layer to it. That's interesting. So in the story, there's this traveler, Finn, and he's looking for some peace and quiet, to escape from all the stress of his life. And he finds it in this forest, surrounded by those echoes of kindness. It's like the forest itself is offering him comfort and healing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It makes you think about the places we go when we need to recharge, right? What is it about those places that draws us in? Is it the peacefulness of the environment itself? Or is it like the memories we have of feeling good there?
Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, we're going to a place that's totally different. The Cloud Painter. Ready for this? We're talking floating islands. Like islands suspended in the air with a whole village nestled amongst them.
Oh, wow. That's like so whimsical. I'm picturing it now. And so who's this cloud painter then?
Her name is Anwen, and get this, she paints the clouds. She uses these giant brushes to create these amazing designs in the sky.
She paints the clouds. That's incredible. It's like art on a massive scale.
Exactly. It's like she's shaping the very atmosphere, bringing beauty and whimsy to everyone below. And what's so cool is that it's all temporary. The wind and the light are always changing her artwork.
Oh, I see. So it's like a reminder that nothing is permanent. Right.
Yeah.
Even beauty that's fleeting can have a lasting impact.
Exactly. It's a beautiful way to think about it. Okay, now let's come back down to earth for our next story. The Clockmaker's Garden. This one's about a hidden garden tucked away behind a clockmaker's workshop.
A clockmaker's garden. I like that. So what's the vibe like in this garden?
It's a mix of precision and wildness. You can imagine these tiny clocks ticking away in perfect harmony with birdsong, and the scent of flowers mingling with the aroma of wood and metal from the workshop.
Interesting. That contrast is really cool. It makes me think about how peace can be found in the balance between opposites, like control and surrender, order and chaos.
Right. And the clockmaker, Leora, she embodies that balance perfectly. She's incredibly skilled at her craft, making these intricate clocks. But she also finds peace in tending to her garden, letting nature do its thing.
It's like she embraces both the structured and the spontaneous. Maybe true tranquility comes from finding that sweet spot where they intersect.
I love that idea. Okay, for our next destination, get ready for some mystery and magic. We're going to the floating market. The catch? It only appears under the full moon.
Whoa, a floating market that appears under the full moon. That's so cool. Like, is it a secret market or something?
Exactly, and it's described as a place of hushed tones, unhurried movements, and this like soft ethereal glow.
Oh, I see. It's like time slows down there. It's like a place where you can escape from the everyday world, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
The story talks about like soft fabrics, jars of honey, flowers that glow in the moonlight. It sounds so dreamy and peaceful.
It's like a sensory experience designed to like soothe and enchant. It's like the opposite of all the harsh lights and loud noises we're bombarded with every day.
Right, it's a true escape. From the magic of the floating market, we're now traveling to the edge of the world, the sleepy harbor. This harbor is where the sea meets the sky, and all the ships seem to come to rest, like they've reached the end of their journeys.
Wow, the edge of the world. That's such a powerful image. It's like reaching a destination and finally letting go of all that striving and seeking.
Exactly. And in this peaceful harbor, we meet Jonah, an old sailor who's seen it all. Now he finds contentment in the simplest things, watching the sunrise, sharing stories, just being present in the moment.
It's like a reminder that peace doesn't have to come from like achieving great things or collecting a ton of stuff. It can be found in those everyday moments, those simple joys that we often overlook.
Yeah, it's about appreciating what you have right here, right now. And Jonah's stories, even though they're simple, they seem to hold a kind of wisdom, like wisdom that comes from a life spent observing nature and people.
There's a quiet power in that kind of wisdom. It's not about being flashy or loud. It's about a deep understanding of what truly matters.
I love that. Okay, ready for our final destination for this part of our deep dive. We're going to a town that's permanently shrouded in twilight, a place where lost dreams reside in the Library of Lost Dreams.
Wait, a library for lost dreams. So like dreams that people have forgotten or given up on?
Exactly. It's like all those aspirations, the ones we tucked away or thought were impossible, they're all still there, just waiting to be rediscovered.
That's such an interesting concept. It's like saying that even our forgotten dreams still hold value, that they can still inspire us.
Exactly. The story describes these dreams as fragile glass bottles, carefully arranged on endless shelves. And Morel, the librarian, takes care of them with such reverence. Every now and then, she'll uncork a bottle and let a dream swirl out into the air.
Wow, what a beautiful image. It's like even though those dreams might be lost, they're not forgotten, they can still offer us hope and inspiration.
It's a powerful image to end on, isn't it? A library of lost dreams. It makes you wonder what forgotten aspirations are waiting to be rediscovered, both within ourselves and out in the world.
That library, it really makes you think, about like all the different paths we could have taken, all the dreams we might have let go of.
It does, doesn't it? Like, what if we hadn't given up on those dreams? And I think, even if those dreams never actually come true, there's still something valuable there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like they're still a part of us, They tell us something about who we are, what we want.
I like that. And it kind of reminds me of, all these other places we've been talking about. Each one's like a different kind of refuge, a different path to peace.
Right. Like think about it. We started at that lonely lighthouse, then a forest with like echoes of kindness in the air, then floating islands and a hidden garden.
And then a market that only shows up under the full moon, a harbor at the edge of the world, and now this library of dreams.
So many different places, but they all have that sense of escape, like a place to get away from it all and just like breathe.
Yeah, totally. And what's so cool is how those places, they like reflect the characters who live there.
Exactly. Like Elias, the lighthouse keeper, he's all about routine and solitude,
Yeah.
right? Just like his lighthouse.
Right. And Finn, the guy in the forest, he was looking for healing and connection, which is exactly what that forest offered.
And then there's Anwen, painting those amazing clouds. She's all about creativity and beauty.
And Leora, she finds peace in the balance between order and nature, just like her garden. Even Jonah, at the edge of the world, he's content with the simple things.
It's almost like their surroundings, they're like mirrors to their inner selves. It makes you wonder, do we choose places that match who we are, or do those places kind of like shape us over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
But either way, it shows how connected we are to the places we inhabit.
Definitely. And that reminds me, something else I've noticed in these stories is how much attention they pay to the senses, to all the little details.
You're right. Like the smell of that chamomile tea, the sound of the waves in the lighthouse keeper, or the soft moonlight and quiet voices in the floating market. They all create this feeling of tranquility.
And that's something our listeners can try too, right? Like, pay attention to the sensory details around you. What smells, what sounds, what textures make you feel calm and peaceful.
It's like creating your own little oasis, using those senses to like shift your mood and find some peace in everyday life.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, It could be as simple as lighting a candle you like, listening to some calming music.
Or just taking a few minutes to, appreciate the beauty of nature.
Exactly. And another big theme in these stories is the importance of slowing down. Like really taking your time and being present in the moment.
Right, like Elias with his nightly ritual, or Finn just absorbing the peace of the forest, or Jonah watching the ships go by. They're not rushing or striving, they're just being.
And that's so important, especially nowadays when everything's so fast-paced and hectic. These stories remind us that we can choose to slow down, to savor the simple things, the little joys we might normally miss.
And I think when we slow down, we also start to connect more deeply with ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly, like Finn connecting with nature or Jonah connecting with other people through his stories. Connection, it's such an important part of finding peace, isn't it?
It is, and it's not always about like grand gestures or big events. Sometimes it's just a smile from a stranger, a moment with a pet.
Or that feeling of belonging to a place, a community. And I think ultimately so much of what we've talked about comes down to a shift in perspective.
What do you mean?
It's not about finding some like magical, peaceful place, but about choosing to see the peace that's already there inside us and around us.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like cultivating a peaceful mindset, a way of looking at the world that lets us appreciate what we have, find the beauty in the ordinary.
Yes, that's it, exactly. And that's something we can do no matter where we are, no matter what's going on around us.
I love that.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we have the power to choose peace, even when things are tough. It's wild, right? Like we started with these simple stories about peaceful places, and now we're talking about like the nature of peace itself.
It's pretty amazing, huh? Storytelling, it can really take you to some unexpected places.
Totally. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm wondering, is there like one big takeaway, something our listener can do today, inspired by all this talk about peace?
That's a good question. I keep thinking back to all those sensory details in the stories, like they were such a big part of creating that peaceful atmosphere.
Right, like the chamomile tea, the sound of waves.
Exactly. What if our listener picked one of those sensory things, something that really stood out to them, and, tried to bring it into their own life?
Well, I like that. Like, let's say someone really connected with Elias and his tea ritual. Maybe they could try doing something similar, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or maybe they loved that idea of the forest of echoes, that place full of positive energy. Maybe they could find a quiet spot in nature, just sit there and soak it all in.
Ooh. Or someone who loved Anwen and her cloud paintings. Maybe they could try some kind of creative activity, something that brings them joy and helps them express themselves.
Exactly. It's all about finding those little things that ground you, those sensory anchors that bring you back to a peaceful place, even if just for a few minutes.
And those things are going to be different for everyone, right? What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. It's all about exploring, experimenting, finding what resonates with you, what brings you peace, and then, making it a part of your life, even in a small way.
Love it. It's been such a pleasure exploring these stories with you, really. I feel like we could talk about this stuff for hours.
Me too. It's been a fascinating conversation. And to our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found something here that inspires you to, seek out more peace and tranquility in your own lives.
Absolutely. Now remember, the journey towards peace, it's ongoing, it's a process. So just keep exploring, keep experimenting, and see what you discover.